Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of TCG Talk, back today with another video. And in today's video, I want to bring up a discussion on some of the things surrounding the Hunted set, like in terms of pricing and in terms of just how this set has rolled out, and kind of give my general thoughts on it and get your thoughts on it as a community. Not like insanely negative, just more of like, constructive criticism I think is warranted, and just kind of overall get other people's thoughts, because some people might think differently than me. So it'll be an interesting discussion. But if you're new to the channel, welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. Hopefully enjoy your stay. If you're a long-standing supporter, thank you so much. As always, feel free to check out the Discord, channel membership, all that stuff down below. So I want to come up to a couple of points here. I'm going to bring this window up, and I want to lead this off with, like, this isn't like blatant just like whining or anything like that. This is just something that I've noticed with this set release that is causing some concern. Not like, the sky is falling concern or anything like that. Like, the game's in an amazing spot, right? And I want to make that clear. However, LSS, as we know and love, they listen to their community, right? They do. We've had some ups and some downs, but for the most part, compared to other TCGs, we're in such an amazing spot. And I want to thank them for that. And apparently, they listen to content creators more than we think, because tier lists and other content pieces were one of the reasons that Ira's Needle got banned. So in the light of that, maybe we should start making a little bit more content on when we do have feedback for the game. So that's what I'm going to do today. The main thing that kind of brought this topic up is this right here. But I'm going to kind of delve into more other points as well, and it's in terms of pricing and availability for the game. Hunter's Clave right now, which is a majestic weapon in the expansion slot, is $70 for the non-foil normal version. Now, there's several reasons to this, and we'll come back to this, but this is what procked this whole video idea for me, of some feedback I have specifically for LSS. So hopefully somebody from LSS watches this. I know for a fact other prominent people will have some of these opinions as well. They might not make a content piece on it, but regardless. One is the Calling Memphis and the way that this set was released in conjunction with a Calling level classic constructed event. Putting it plainly, and like with not beating around the bush, there should not be a Calling level event the day of a set release. There's so many reasons for this. Card availability, price gouging, even more. Like, every set that comes out, there's always like insane prices, right? If you try to buy a legendary day one, you're going to overpay for it. Like, we're not all lost on that. However, the way that this set was handled in terms of not only, and I loved how they did previews this time with Majestics and with like not showing the kind of the glue until the last second, but when you do the spoilers the way that they did them in conjunction with a major CC level event the day of the release of the game, you kind of just like, speaking plainly, you kind of just like screwed over your player base, your competitive player base, because there's tons of people day one of the event that wanted to play certain heroes and couldn't because they couldn't get cards. Other people like were buying shelters for like $100 a piece. And yes, that is your decision as a consumer to do that or not to do that. But regardless, I don't think players should be put in that position to have to do that, right? I think that I have no issues with there being like a celebratory event release weekend, but make it limited, or make it something that's not going to be like classic constructed, hyper competitive. Maybe you do another the world premiere. Maybe that's just your release weekend event every time. I think that should just, it just shouldn't be a thing, right? And I'm not going to beat a dead horse on it. I just think that was handled improperly. I hope that they don't do it again, although as of right now, they're going to do it again, because in June is the next set release, which is US, not just US, but national season in general. So we're going to get a set release probably the same weekend as some nationals. And that shouldn't happen. And I understand that we have a really robust OP system, which I love and I thank LSS for, but we could move it a week. We could not, there's only 3 sets released a year-ish, right? It would not be hard to not have your set release on one of the weekends of an event 3 times a year. That's just my opinion, and I won't go any further on that one. But that's one thing I want to see change. That's from more of an OP system standpoint, less so a pricing standpoint. But it did cause extreme gouging, and the market is reflecting that, right? We're seeing even more gouged prices on certain things than we normally would because of the Calling Memphis releasing and Syndra doing well, and this perfect storm of factors that are causing these prices to just be unbelievable. The second one, this is a hyper-specific one, is Hunter's Clave. One, from what I'm hearing, I have not seen an official statement from LSS. Maybe it's in the articles somewhere. But from what I'm hearing, this is short printed at like a third of the rate. On top of that, this is a Majestic level weapon, not token rarity, that quite literally is required to have to play one hero. Like, Arachne Marionette, yes, you could technically play with Spider's Bite and all that stuff, but you're not going to. There's zero reason you want to mark opponents. And if you don't have this weapon, and you just use the token weapons, or you just use cards that mark, which Assassin doesn't have as many, there's no point in playing the hero. There's really not. Unless you're playing hyper budget, which is fine, like Commoner or something like that, sure. But I'm always, on this channel at least, for the most part, going to be speaking from a competitive perspective. The short printing, I doubt they did on purpose, so I won't go any further on that other than saying I wish that wouldn't have happened. But even if it wouldn't have been short printed, there should not be a Majestic level weapon in the expansion slot that is required to play a hero, essentially. And pseudo required to have, if you're going to be flexible, in the Assassin class in general. Uziri can use this weapon. New can use this weapon at a one of, or even Huntsman, if you wanted to, could use this weapon at a one of. Slippy is going to use this weapon for the most part because you want to have like Mark of the Black Widow. Now you can go to the traditional Spider's Bite routes and stuff, but you're going to want to use this weapon. So this was, again, perfect storm of factors. I don't like, if you just said to any flesh and blood competitive player, hey, like, if Brian Gottlieb went up to a Michael Hamilton, or to, a Yuki Lee Bender and said, hey, we're thinking about putting a class-specific Majestic weapon in the expansion slot that's required to play one of the new heroes. What do you think about that? I guarantee you every single player would be like, it's probably not a good idea. Why don't you just make it token rarity? Or why don't you just make it normal M, or not even expansion slot, just make it a normal M? Because we've had M weapons before, right? Like, why? I know they put in the expansion slot to avoid limited issues, because this card in limited would just break Arachne if you got it. But it just shouldn't be a thing. Like, just make it a normal Majestic and then put out a rules reprise saying you can't use it or something. I don't know. That probably wouldn't work as a pack distribution and stuff like that. But regardless, this created a storm where people now, if they want to play Marionette, they got to shark. Even if this goes down a little bit, because this card is not, because of the short printing, which is another factor probably out of their control, this card's not going to drop below $40. It's going to cost you anywhere between, if you're lucky, $60 to $140 at its height right now to play a hero in the game, just to play one, not even to build the deck, just to say, okay, I have the weapons I need. That just shouldn't happen. I mean, if I'm gonna go down a rabbit hole for 2 seconds here, I'll open up this. I'll go to my list, my recent one that I'm like messing with right now. Just to play Arachne Marionette is $1,400 with Command and Conquer. So if you take out Command and Conquer, I don't have Warmonger's Diplomacy in here. I don't have Weakest Link in here. I don't have Erase Face in here. I don't even have Quick Dodge Flexors in here. I just have Black Text, right? The only like not staple or not needed card is technically Command and Conquer. Even without Command and Conquer, you're looking at spending about $1,200 to play Arachne Marionette. So when I'm telling a player who's maybe new but wants to like buy into a class or buy into a hero, and they want to pick one of the new heroes because it's far away from Living Legend and it's really fun, I now have to explain to them they have to pay over $100 just to get the weapons. It just shouldn't be a thing. This is a huge miss by LSS. Short printing or not, just the situation of it, having a Majestic level expansion slot weapon that is required to play one of the brand new heroes effectively and efficiently, it's just not good. The other thing that I wanted to bring up too is tournament deck price list. Now I do this like every 6 months. I didn't go through and make all the prices again. This is back in let's see, the most recent one I did was November. In June of 24, the average price of a Flesh and Blood deck was around $800. In November of 24, right after Worlds, in technically an off-season time frame, the price of a deck had went up to $988. Even if we take out Assassin, which is like the Bentley of this game when it comes to pricing, the average Flesh and Blood deck without Assassin back in June of last year was $760. The average Flesh and Blood deck without Assassin in November of last year, just a couple months ago, was $927. When you take into a factor non-luxury costs, so I even took out like the luxury cards, Warmonger's Diplomacy, cards that I consider not needed in order to the deck to still function the way it's supposed to, the average Flesh and Blood deck was still $700. And the average cost of a deck after you buy all the initial staples, which at the time I had Command and Conquer, Fyndal Spring Tunic, and Light and Strike, Balance of Justice, Crown Province, and Art of War. Those were the 6 staples I considered because that was pre-Art of War ban, or right at the Art of War ban. The average cost of a deck, even without the staples, was $400. Without Assassin, $374. But the average cost of staples and of all the staples in general was $580. Like, this is a lot of money, y'all. Like, it's a lot of money. And now, if you want to get technical, we have even more staples that we have to buy, technically, if you want to play it the most efficient possible. So we still have Command and Conquer, which right now, as of today, recording this on February 7th, 2025, is $225 for a playset. That is the White History Pack one. If you get the other one, it's even a little bit more. In June, it was $236, so it's gone down a little bit. Tunic has gone right back up to $150. It was sub $100 back last time I did this. And Light and Strike's gone up again over $100. Balance of Justice has gone down because you don't draw as much with the book banning, so that one makes sense. Crown Province has gone up $30. Shelter of the Storm is our newest staple. You do not need this card technically. If you're playing at competitive level, though, you want this card because it's another 0-for-4 react with upside. Right, it adds on to the sinks and the fates of the world, and when you're playing at a calling level, battle hardened level, and above event, if your deck wants to run these, you want to have these over Sink or Fate. Like, if you run Fate in any of your lists, you just run this. Unless you're maybe Kano and you want to, like, opt or something. But other than that, like, this card is almost a must-have. Right now, Shelter of the Storm is... It's not even $140. I messed that up. It's $70 a piece. Shelter from the Storm. It's $70 a piece, so I can't do math. That's $210 for a playset. I'm sorry. That makes it even go higher. And then we have quick dodge flexors, which are... Again, somewhat tech, but they're going to be a staple card that you want if you're building a collection and playing this game competitively. They're sitting at about $92, and I don't see them going much farther down, even with the gouging. So staples right now, what I consider staples, Command and Conquer, Tunic, Enlightened Strike, Balance of Justice, Crown of Providence, Shelter of the Storm, and Quick Dodge Flexors. You could take Balance of Justice out there if you want, but all these cards are good cards to have if you're going to be a perennial... Oh, thanks for the subscription. I didn't even know I had that on. That scared the crap out of me. If you want to be a perennial competitive player, you're looking at $900 you're going to cough up for all of these staples just before you even buy your deck. Then we have tech staples. Now, these are cards you don't need, but if you're going, again, be a perennial player, there's going to be metas that shift in ebb and flow where you're going to want these cards in your binder to pull them out when you need them. Warmonger's Diplomacy is the biggest one, $225. This is also the least one because once Azalea and Viscerai go, until we get another non-attack action-based hero, this card might not be as used as needed, so you could even take this out if you wanted to. Even if you take it out, it's still, what, $344 for all this stuff? Weakest Link, $150. There's always going to be it's a popper. It cares about cards that don't block, which as long as there's an illusionist in the game, that will be a thing. So this card's always going to be a staple sideboard piece. Erase Face cares anything talent, cares about that card. You're looking at $70 for a playset. Snags, I put now in the tech staples because Assassin is the most, as of the last couple of years, Assassin is the most well taken care of set in Flesh and Blood. period. It's got so much support, especially with this newest set. So now I put that in the staple tech category, and that all you got. It's a very small one, but I think that card's always one you want in your binder, right, for when you need it. It's very good in this meta right now. That's $49 for a set. So for the considered staples of the game, or what I consider the staples of the game, and I am one creator. If you disagree with me, that's fine. $973. For the tech sideboard staples, $569. Even without Warmonger's Diplomacy, you're looking at $300 and something. So you're looking at a minimum, if you want to, get everything you need to the T, and even if you're getting it over time, that's $1,200, and you haven't even bought a Flesh and Blood deck yet. So I bring all this up because we're starting to get to the point in this game where, and by the way, side note, all of these decks are tournament winning lists, and if it's not a tournament winning list, it's a very prominent list from a well-known player in that hero. So that's just for that. We're starting to get to the point, like, people always argued, like, oh, the game doesn't rotate, right? Even if you're Hero Living Legends, you can still play that class. Not 100% true, but okay. Cards that go in Dawnblade Dory do not go in Kasai. Cards that go in Jarl do not go in Bravo, 100%, right? Like, talents change things and playstyles change things. Cards that go in Katsu do not go in Draconic Ninja. Like, it doesn't always go one-on-one. Cards that go in Levia do not go, like, talent changes a lot of things. But anyway, we always had the thing of, the game doesn't have a rotating format. If you're Hero LLs, you still can play the class. If you want to switch classes, it doesn't cost as much once you have the staples. That's usually been the argument. Well, in my opinion, this is just me. If you disagree, it's completely fine. That argument starts to lose weight when I'm paying $1,000 for the staples. Like, $1,000 for the staples. And you can say, okay, don't buy Shelter of the Storm, just run Fate Foreseen. True, but you're going to be at a disadvantage. A slight one, a very, very slight one, but enough to where if I'm spending money to go play at a Battle Hardened or Calling level event or Nationals, it matters. Not having Crown of Providence in certain decks, you want to have this card. You can run Skullcap for 23, but Crown's better. Enlightened Strike doesn't go in every deck, but the decks it does go in, it makes them way more efficient. Tunic. Don't need to say anything about Tunic. Tunic is a requirement. It's pretty much a requirement for like 70% of decks, 80% of decks. Command and Conquer. Technically not a requirement, but if you do not have this in your deck, in a deck that normally runs it, you will feel a difference in your gameplay. Period. So all I have to say, like, going back to the original point of Hunter's Clave, like, that's what procted all this for me, this, like, I guess, frustration, without trying to be too complainy, because I'm not trying to. I want LSS to have solutions to these. One solution is actual reprints. Like, we haven't, if you look at all these staples, Tunic's gotten several reprints, but really I think Tunic's just always going to be like a staple price point. You can try to reprint it as much as you want, but it's always going to be a little bit expensive just because it's needed. Enlightened Strike should have gotten a reprint by now. It has not. Command and Conquer has gotten reprints, but they're not really reprints. We've gotten a Fabled Command and Conquer. We've gotten two Alt-Art Command and Conquers, technically, counting this one, and one of them is a Legendary. Like, that's not a reprint. That's not an actual reprint. Now, whether they want this still in the game, that's why they haven't done it. That's a different discussion. Crown of Providence got one reprint, which did help a little bit. It was way higher than this, so that's good. And these are new cards. But we hopefully they continue to try to reprint stuff. The Hunter's Clave issue, hopefully they fix this somehow, some way. Maybe reprint this in the next set or something. But this is insane. And the thing is this problem is not going away. If it's short printed in the expansion slot, this card is not going down in price. It's not. Especially if Assassin is even remotely playable, which it's going to be for the foreseeable future, even after new goes. So, hopefully they fix this. And then the other thing, just don't put a Classic Instructed event on a release weekend. Just don't do it. It's just so bad. I know LSS had no malintent in it, and I love them to death, but this, like, puts your players in a really shitty spot. Some players had to play up the butt to get the most ideal deck they wanted, because if they're spending money to travel to a calling level event to compete for this prize pool in your world tour, they need to have the best deck possible, so they're going to buy from the vendors, and they're going to get gouged up the ass, and you can't blame the vendors because they're just making money and doing what they should do as a business, supply and demand, but it's just ridiculous. It also creates competitive extreme competitive disadvantage if you have these top players who have access to min-max privately. Let's be real, who have min-max to Hamal, who I love to death, and have purchased cards from him. They're just doing their job as vendors. Like, I never blame them, but like, they have better access to some of these cards than your normal everyday player who only can get them through pulls or through vendors on site if they have it. Like, it created a huge competitive disadvantage in my opinion, because some players were able to fully build their decks and some weren't. Some players were able to get their shelters and some weren't. Some players probably were able to borrow shelters from certain people and some weren't. It creates a competitive disadvantage in a OP system that you pride yourself on being like the most premier OP system in TCGs. So all that to say, that's my thoughts. Hopefully this didn't seem too bitchy. I'm sorry if it did. But these are just little things that I think we can fix. Like, I'm not just bringing a problem without solutions. Like, don't put a big event on a pre-release weekend. Don't give a must-have majestic weapon in the expansion slot and then short print it. I know that sounds like a no-shit thing, but whatever. And also find out a way, and this is why I don't have a great answer for it. We need to find out a way to reprint these or bring the cost down in the game just a little bit. The average Flesh and Blood deck is now almost at $1,000. It probably is. If I redid this today on a new set release, it would be over $1,000 on average. And the problem with that is, the last thing I'll say is, set releases, yes, is when prices go up, but it's also when new players come to the game. So I have all these new players that are super excited, like, oh, I want to build Arachne. How much does it cost? $1,400. Well, what if I take the Command and Conquers out? $1,200. What if I take Tunic out? $1,100. Like, it's still a lot of money. It doesn't change, right? Like, if you take, let's just take Tunic out and you put in Redback Shroud. You take out what? Save Your Bloodsheds, maybe, if you don't want 1M, and you have to have Codex in a deck, in my opinion. If you don't, you're just, why are you playing Assassin? I'm not going to say take Codex out, because no. Persuasive Prognosis, $50. Bonds of Agony, $41. Like, they're very powerful cards, but it just sucks to have to tell a player that. So that's just my thoughts. I know I ranted. If y'all agree or disagree with me, let me know. I'm not I will not shy away from different opinions, and I would love to hear your thoughts on it as well. Yeah, I would love to hear it. Overall, it's little things that I think we can fix, but I would like to see fixed. And if LSS really does watch creators and take at least their opinions into account a little bit, I know for a fact I am not the only person that has all of these opinions. There's a lot of people in the community with the exact same opinions as me, including like top level players. So yeah, regardless, I hope you're having a great day. I hope if you enjoyed this type of content, I don't know if you enjoyed talking about bad things in Flesh and Blood. I know I don't, but if you agree or disagree with these opinions, like or dislike the video, it's completely fine. If not, go down to the creator list on the Google Sheet, go find another creator, leave a like, comment, subscribe on their stuff. Let's get more people seeing this game. At the end of the day, this game is very popular. It's growing, which is going to make prices go up. That's not something you can stop, right? You're not going to reprint things into the dirt. So I'm not saying that there's an easy solution to this, but there are some small things like the Clave and the Calling Memphis stuff that I think can be fixed very easily. So that's near here and there. So hopefully you enjoy this type of content. Y'all stay safe this week, and I'll see y'all next time on TCG Talk.